Northwest, spawning as the blue Terran player. From Mouse Sports, he is HeRoMaRinE.
And in the southeast, it is the red Cirque player, the king of Lambos, Lambo! King! And actually only dropping a series to Christianer, which is probably the opponent that you would expect is least likely to beat a big player like Lambo. But that's also kind of what I'm talking about. I think that Lambo tends to grow against stronger players because I don't think that there's any pressure that he would feel playing against someone like Gabe. When we talk about someone like Gabe, we're talking often just below Raynor, Clem, and Cyril. I think he would be the first name to pop up, right?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you there. He's been one of the players that's just been consistent, and that's what's so hard about playing against Gabe. I think we used to say a lot more that he was the kind of guy that we'd be like, oh, does he come in tilted today? Does he get a little bit rattled? And I don't feel like HeRoMaRinE is that player anymore. I think he's gotten a lot better grip on his nerves, and that's made him a little bit harder to beat if you're one of those players that's a rung or two below him. And that's why it's really tough, even for up-and-coming players, because it's not even like, oh, yes, I'm approaching the level of Big Gabe. But yeah, but if you're not actually a league above him, the odds of you beating him are still not that great, because he's become a very consistent player. And that's why I picked him to win this series, because Lambo is doing really well. He's clowning on everybody else in this group, but Gabe is not just anybody else, right? He's an obstacle that he needs to grow and evolve in order to overcome.
Yes, indeed. And Lambo, as a player, I think he's a little bit of a mix of planning and adapting compared to most others. He's a planner for sure, and he has responses set, but they're not set in stone like you might see from other players like Laser. And I think that that's really strong headed into a match against Big Gabe. A few years ago, I actually recall Lambo talking about Big Gabe in particular, and how Big Gabe, for example, tends to do very straightforward responses based on the information that you have fed him in previous series. So if last time you did X, that's what he will account for in the following series or game after. So that is the kind of thing where I think that Lambo has had some time to prepare and can maybe get an advantage up on Big Gabe. I think if they play on the ladder, then I would also favor Big Gabe more often than not. But here, I think Lambo has a decent shot if he's put in the work.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible, right? And we're on Death War. You've got a big map where if he can bring this game to even like a long kind of place, it gets a little bit tricky for Terran as far as securing like the 5th bases can go, right? So if you can get any momentum going, that's always going to be nice. I feel like trying to bring a big attack early to Gabe is always going to be hard because he streams so much. He ladders an insane amount. You kind of play versus the blind, 1.5, 2.5-ish base pushes that lots of people do a lot. He's generally, from what I've seen, be pretty good at holding off most shenanigans. So that's definitely something to keep our eyes on. And Cats, he did go for a crazy fast 3rd command center this game, which is why I bring that up, because I still don't even feel comfortable trying to kill him when I see that he's got his stored orbital transforming before the 4-minute mark.
Yeah, he's really got everything very tightly knit, Big Gabe. He is a very, very methodical player, one of the strongest macro Terrans out there, but unlike I want to say, for example, Special, who is also a very, very strong macro player, I think Big Gabe can be a little bit spicy and can focus on those units. I shouldn't say unlike Special, because Special obviously can too, but Big Gabe is becoming very, very well-rounded, I think.
Yes, definitely. I think that's the best way that you could possibly say it, is he's ironed out. He's smoothed out a few of the wrinkles in his play. Maybe is the more.
Yeah,
there you go. That's the analogy. He took a nice iron to it. He smoothed it out, and he showed up. He looked fresh. He's looking fresh, Cats.
Was that an intentional cancel on the Banshee?
Maybe he was worried about whether he needed it. He doesn't want to actually build it because they're not super great. But he just cancels it. He was just worried about roaches,
that's so cool. Yeah. And this is exactly what you were talking about, Nate. Like, he starts a Banshee in case there is a roach attack coming. As soon as he confirms that there isn't, he just switches on to something else because he deems that the Banshee is not going to be good enough for him right now. So that's what you're talking about. It's like very tightly knit, ironed shirt that Big Gabe is wearing. The Tour de France shirt yet again.
Yeah, and it looks good on him when he flexes those big muscles, cats. He's got the Hellions moving out now. His upgrades are rolling along. Stim's gonna finish soon, and I mean Lambo hasn't been slouching either. I think the only thing we need to see from him is secure that fourth base, that very critical fourth base that we always talk about in ZVT. He does just now start it, but the third has landed. So you don't want to be on an even economic keel when you're playing ZVT. You know, you want to be able to have that economy to make those big swarm armies, right? You want to be able to overwhelm your opponent. And we know that once HeRoMaRinE gets situated on 3 bases, this is generally when the Terrans start to cross the map and try to get it done.
Yes, indeed. However, Lambo is a little bit ahead on upgrades, which is good for him, as well as already starting on that Baneling speed. And if he continues to get good creep spread, because he has very good creep spread so far and has done a good job of protecting it with the Queens, then those Banelings are going to be incredibly difficult to push into. So Lambo kind of going for a very defensive style, going and aiming for a macro game against the macro beast that is Big Gabe.
Yeah. Now, the important upgrades, though, even with that 1-1 being a little bit faster, Bane speed has a little bit of time still to go. And the Marines are here with some Sim. There's a lot of Zerglings, but 5-6 Hellions could, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, cats. You could kill 30 Lings in one shot if they approach this army incorrectly with that many Hellions backing him up. And he's presumably going to make Hellbats when the armory is done. But he did delay this attack long enough to get his Bane speed, and I think that's got to be one of the most important, if not the most important upgrade in this matchup, right?
Yeah, but Big Gabe, how has he managed to snuck here in spite of the Overlord's well positioned? Lambo's gonna have to pull back and respond to this, but already losing a little bit of mining time, not ideal for him. On that, Nate, I think that as Big Gabe was pushing into that fourth base that we see still being poked at, Lambo kind of showed all of his links, Banelings, and the positioning of them. I wish almost that he had baited that army inwards, but maybe he was concerned about the Hellions potentially morphing into Hellbats, and didn't want to give any time for that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like I think he could have flanked and maybe baited Big Gabe a little bit harder there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded to see that at all. His creep spread's still been pretty solid outside these bases. Doesn't get the big money Bane detonation. Both medevacs get full on the way out.
At least 4.
Still has a lot of stuff to work with here. But yeah, it looks like at least one of those groups of Marines is going to check in and not be able to check out.
Yeah, Big Gabe with very, very good control here, but Lambo with the anti-Gabe spores, and now there is Hellbat, but there's also Banelings with speed, so they're not going to be able to trade efficiently at all. Big Gabe still with amazing macro behind this has managed somehow to keep up in supply in spite of not really finding too much damage with his aggression.
Yeah, and this attack on the 5th base is really, really nice. Being able, you want to always try to bring things back to some level of equilibrium if you can. Cutting down the Zerg economy is so important, but also, you know, the hatcheries. Every hatch generates a larva. Now, Lambo has done a good job of at least keeping those 4 bases. There is no 4th for HeRoMaRinE. So you're not in a position where you necessarily feel like you have all the pressure in the world on you. You want to try to take bases, but you want to just make sure you keep your creep spread going. You want to keep the Queens alive. You want to make sure that you can deal with these types of attacks. But he's retreating so far. Lambo's given up a tremendous amount of ground towards this fort.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the best way to put it. However, it is Big Gabe standing on creep, so perhaps Lambo can still capitalize. All the Banelings are gone. No, there's some more coming in. There is only one mine there set up for Big Gabe, so it seems like Lambo will be able to push him back. But yeah, I agree. Given that the distance back to that fort is so long when you go around, it was a little bit strange that he was pulling back with most of his army on that side. Regardless, he's gonna hold comfortably ultimately. And yeah, this is not too bad. He's already, Lambo that is, he's already getting the lurker upgrades. He already has a hive up. So if he can stabilize here, he will have an opening where he can, you know, get situated and potentially go on the aggressive.
Well, it's a race against the clock now, isn't it, Cats? Lambo is getting the upgrades that are going to turn his army from, you know, just from regular Zergy boys into some big chonkers. And he's going to try to match that size of Gabriel to see if he can take him down. 7 lurkers being morphed with that seismic spines upgrade. That's going to be the extra range. And then, of course, you want to get adaptive talents with a burrow. That's like I love to say, that's what it's turning the Marines with stim and combat shields. That's what the lurker upgrades are for that unit. It makes it so powerful that you can actually start to move out a little bit, start to try and set up siege plays, and it gets really tough for the Terran to break in. But that's why Gabe's going for these big drops. He wanted the Viking to move the Overlords away so he could get in, and he's going to be able to unload inside the main base because he's trying to defend that southwest position. Like, he's really got Lambo spreading himself so thin.
Yeah, and there's nothing to respond to this drop in the main base. 7 drones already going down. And like you said, Nate, that Viking was so cool because it was like a retroactive Viking, right? It wasn't a Viking from the start. It was a Viking that he made to clear that position to make it easier for him to drop. However, Lambo takes a decent engagement at the front, or is it? I mean, there's lurkers burrowed and he will push the army back, but he did take some damage back at home as well. So,
it was an interesting fight. It was an interesting fight because the lurkers mostly stayed alive, but he threw all the Ling Bane into the siege tanks too. Like, he killed the tanks with Banelings. So there's still a good amount of Marines left alive, and it becomes an awkward trade. But I actually don't mind it because he's building 16 Hydras right now, right? Like, we can see that he burns a lot of that supply, but he's replacing it with the units that are supposed to be more cost efficient. They're supposed to trade better. He just needs to make sure that they're in position to defend his base.
Yes, indeed. Both lurker upgrades are now ready, so they can burrow more or less instantaneously now. And this is going to be a little bit harder to push into if you're Big Gabe. However, if we look back at his base and at the map as it's set up, I mean, he has a lot of infrastructure, a lot of economy coming up. He's done a wonderful job of situating his 4th, now floating over his 5th. So Gabe is not looking to kill Lambo so much as he's looking to establish himself out on the map just so that Lambo can do exactly this and try to punish Big Gabe.
This is really, really dangerous, though. Those lurkers are going to get super close to this army. There's only a handful of siege tanks to try and deal with them. Those lurkers are like mega tanks, burrow right in front of the army and rip it to shreds as HeRoMaRiNE's 3rd is now going to be contested, Cats.
Yeah, Lambo needs to go in ASAP. Now a tank is sieged. It won't matter. It's not enough. 1 tank more is coming, though, on the side of Big Gabe, but the position has been sieged. And this is where lurkers really thrive. Might be able to stop that command center from building as well. And yeah, this is exactly what Lambo's going to be wanting to do. And look at this. This is so daring. Recognizing that that Big Gabe may not have enough and pushing on further. This is going to net him more damage with those supply depots and command centers going down, Nate.
Yeah, well, this is perfect play. This is a perfectly executed attack by Lambo, seizing the opportunity, recognizing the low amount of power units, just straight up bio against heavily upgraded lurkers with all those abilities we were talking about. It doesn't really hold a candle to it. Even if he could clean this up, I'm not sure he could ever recover from the damage he took. GG, well played. Lambo holds off the storm of HeRoMaRiNE and gets up that tech. He gets up to the composition that he wanted to have. And he says, all right, the time for defending is over. You've overcommitted now into my lurkers. I'm going to bring the fight to you. And with that quick burrow, he gets into a great position, good concave. A lot of Hydras. It felt like a weird amount of Hydras, but I actually loved it. It worked really well. And he donked on HeRoMaRiNE in that first game is the only way I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, he took damage here and there, and HeRoMaRiNE was really looking to get situated back at home, but he didn't have enough tanks to really push back the lurkers, right? So as soon as Lambo gets in that position, so very difficult to dislodge, and yeah, very well done for him. I mean, he pretty much pushed as soon as both of his upgrades were ready as well, Nate. He pushed at 2-2. It was a very, very strong tier 3 timing, essentially.
Yeah, and that's a very razor thin thing to try and do, though, right? Because he did not have anything that was like crazy good as far as his army went most of the game. Lambo's strategy was to play greedy on the tech side of things. He wasn't greedy with getting bases. He wasn't doing crazy amounts of harass or trying to force fights. He was just barely holding on with Ling Bane Hydra up to the point where he could finally get the lurkers. And he's like, all right, this is what my strategy was based around. This is the comp that I wanted. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, as a Zerg player, Cats, I'm sure you understand this much better than I do, but you really are just playing on a knife's edge until that lurker den is ready to go.
Yeah, and even then, it's not so easy to push out on the map, so it's very good that he managed to find the route to Big Gabe as early and as fast as he did. And also to iterate the capitalization once he was at that base. It's so easy to be like, okay, well, I'm denying this base, that's good enough. But recognizing, hey, I just killed both tanks, and that last one was just sieging, and you probably don't have any more, and continuing to push on forward to those more annoying locations was, I think, a really cool decision by Lambo, and it ended up paying off, obviously.
Yeah, really, really well played game number 1. Let's see if this guy can bring it back. In the bottom left position of Pillars of Gold, we have HeRoMaRinE.
Top right-hand side, most Halloween-like webcam we've had so far. It is Lambo. He's playing and cosplaying lurkers.
Yes. Well, if there's a unit that really fits the holiday today, it's got to be the lurker, right? You don't see it, you just kind of kill it. Well, first it kills your friends, right? That's how you get it. You see the spines coming towards you, rips the guy in front of you in half, and you're like, oh my god! And then the next one comes up from underneath you, splits you in half, and then your friend's like, oh man, and so on and so forth. And that's
unless you run horizontally,
really terrifying.
You could just run horizontally, and then it won't hit you though. You just gotta know where the spine is coming from, and then
okay,
run.
But yeah, okay. Well, in the game, right, there's a gameplay counter to it. But I guess I'm trying to think like in a horror movie, you would be like, oh wait, I just gotta jump to the side. But that's when it's like the lurker, like as you're in midair, you see the spines moving towards where you're going, and you're like, oh my god, he 300 IQ'd it, you know?
Yeah. I'm actually not sure. Do lurkers in StarCraft... I know in Brood War, they're very easy to dodge the spines. In StarCraft 2, it's definitely harder, but I'm not actually sure if you can. I mean, it's definitely good to split units.
You can.
Because you're dragging away the... Okay, nice.
You can, but I think it might be like the Hellion, where the line damage animation is the hit radius for it might be slightly larger than the animation looks. Because the spines look really small, but obviously it'll hit more than just the units that are directly on them, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a big hitbox for sure. HeRoMaRinE here, pretty standard opener nade. He's just going for the Reaper and crossing the map to find whatever information he can. This is a tough map for Terran, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the hardest maps to kind of protect your third base on, whichever one you go for, while you try to move out across the map. Like there's some things that are nice about it, like having a ramp that goes into the natural. But this kind of comes back to some of those discussions that were popping up around the time when they're like, guys, we made it so you can go up to like 20 levels of terrain that we will never allow you to use. And I was like, why do so many maps have this weird design where everything leads into this like big low ground pitch and you can never have like a safe third anymore? And they're like, well, map makers all really like this trend of having low ground valleys on the map. And you know, instead of having the whole thing just be one size. And I get that. It's like a thing that makes sense, but I'm like, man, I really hope at some point they're like, yes, you guys can add a 4th terrain level so we can, we can have different types of maps again. But yeah, on Pillars of Gold, the both thirds are just crazy wide open. So it's a playground if you like to do run-bys or counterattacks.
Yes, indeed. And I'm with you. I would love to see anything that mixes things up. I'm a huge fan of. I think maps are a good place to look at stuff like that. So I would love to see some extra terrains being added here.
Yeah. That's I think a really great way to shake up the game. Pretty quick lair, right? Is this a cheeky quick lair here out of Lambo?
Very cheeky indeed. I mean, this could be a Nidus again. This could be. I mean, I expect a Roach Warren to go down here pretty soon. It's unlikely that it's Muta, as he hasn't taken additional gases yet. So, I mean, very unlikely. I would say that it's Swarm Host, given that his opponent is playing Terran and most often almost exclusively Bio. So yeah, I have to imagine it's got to be a Nidus or something of the sort, Nate. And there's actually no Roach Warren going down either. So I don't know, actually.
Yeah, well, it's like he has ling speed, but he only has 5 lings. So unless he's going to build a million Zerglings while the Nidus network is building, I don't see that doing much. Because he's going to get effectively like 2-1-1 here, right? There's going to be a decent amount of Marines with Stim. So I don't think if he was just trying to get a quick Spire that's even necessarily going to give him the most value either. Some more lings are being made, but I'm with you, Kat. I'm like,
gas.
What's the play? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, the lair is finished. He hasn't really used it. It's a little bit weird. Maybe he forgot the Roach Warren or something of the sorts. He just
starting in
he just dropped
Evo.
something. Huh. Well, yeah, I mean, that lair is finished. I'm not sure what the lair is meant to accomplish here. All right, there is a proxied Roach Warren. Late, though.
Okay.
Very late.
Yeah. No, I don't get it.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, maybe there's a reason. Maybe he just has the lair sitting there for a little while longer for... Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't think of any benefit there, too.
I mean, he's about to be fighting. What is this going to be? 13 Marines with Stim and 8 Hellbats with 2 Medivacs. And he might have some unupgraded Roaches by the time that this hits.
May not, though. I think he just forgot the Roach Warren, and I think he might just die here, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's Hellbats, there's no Banelings.
What are you going to do
in
against
production.
it?
I mean, no, you can't do much here. I think until the Roaches pop up. I think it was.
Brain fart by Lambo.
Oh,
that's unfortunate. It happens, but yeah, that's a lot of damage to take.
Yeah, I'm looking at his camera right now.
Can you see anything there?
A little bit. A little bit, just enough that we'll know. These Hellbats are gonna get picked up and dropped on top of the ground. Oh, Nate.
There you go. Zerg players wanted something to have here of as well for our horror movie references today, and there you go. That's a big one.
Yeah, this is Halloween and 4th of July now at the same time, Nate, with that barbecue.
Oh yeah,
25 went down.
In this matchup, Terran Medivacs only bring the Zerg tricks, no treats.
And I mean, Lambo has to be processing the loss at this point, right? But somehow he's keeping up in supply. He does have a few Roaches on the way, or a lot of Roaches out and some more on the way. So he's probably looking to apply some counter pressure or a counter all in at this point, I would say. He's only making units, not remaking any drones. And he's looking to hit with Roach speed and 1-1.
What else could he really do in this situation, right? I mean, if HeRoMaRiNE's paying attention, all he needs to do is build those tanks, keep SCVs at the front to repair the wall, get a bunker. He's going to move the 3rd command center out. I don't like that, but if he doesn't, as long as he doesn't like take his whole army outside of his base right now, he should still be okay. Like the 3rd CC shouldn't die.
I would like to see 4 bunkers being dropped or something of the sorts. Yeah. More supply depots are gonna go down at the front. I'm not sure I like that.
Well, I guess it choked the Roaches up. Yeah. GG.
I mean, yeah, HeRoMaRiNE just had a little bit too much. Lambo had to try, and I think that's exactly what he was doing, just identifying, okay, well, I have a timing, I lost drones. Let's see what leaning into the full army does. We'll go to a quick break, and then the conclusion of the series. It's a good one.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the DreamHack Masters StarCraft 2. Happy Halloween. I'm Nathanius, joined by Cats as we get into game number 3 of what has delivered, right? This is our first game 3 of the day, Paolo, unless my brain has just shut off that hard, as we've got Lambo tied up with HeRoMaRinE going to Romanticide.
Yeah, it should be a pretty cool map to have a macro fest, perhaps. I mean, last game, a little bit of a fluke on the side of Lambo. We really couldn't piece it together. I think it was just a very late Roach Warren comparatively to his lair. I wonder what Big Gabe was thinking, right? Like that attack surely doesn't win him the game usually.
Yeah, definitely a brain fart, I think. And this guy is going to be looking to bounce back from that in the northwest position. We have the red Zerg Blair tied one apiece. He is Lambo.
And on the bottom right-hand side, the man who called him out on farting, it is HeRoMaRinE.
Yeah, no Baneling Nest, late Roach Warren, crazy early lair with no tech choice for it. Was just, a recipe for disaster. Maybe there was something that Lambo saw that he was like, okay, maybe I can't get away with going for a fast Spire or a Nidus. I don't think it'll work against a 2-on-1. Maybe he realized that it was maybe it was a metagame play by HeRoMaRinE to go for that 2-on-1, expecting mutas for whatever reason. But here we are. And this map, I mean, I think that this is a pretty nice one defensively speaking. There's really only one way to backstab you, and you have to go through, that very large banana hallway right to the left of that third area, which isn't as hard to block off as some of the chokes in the other maps. And it's a very deliberate path you have to take. I think that makes taking the 4th easier for Terran, and consequentially the 5th, because, well, if you don't have to worry about defending your 4th base, you can kind of be a little bit more active. So what does it all mean? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been able to watch too many high-level games on this map. It's still one of the new ones from this season, and I'm just excited to see where it goes. I hope we get a long one here, Cats.
Yeah, definitely. This is a pretty cool map. I think that there are some Terran poking up these ramps with Hellions. It's very difficult to find damage or even creep tumors because there's ramps leading into the natural and the third, which is rather uncommon here for Zerg, as the natural and the third are both connected still. And there's also rocks all over the place that I saw Serral doing something beautiful, which was taking those rocks down and clearing the mineral pathings on this map very early on. Because that just opens up the map for Zerg. And if you have a wide open, large map for Zerg, that's the dream.
Yeah, that's what you want, right? Less choke points, more open spaces. When we talk about, for example, the last map, when we're talking about like what makes it harder for Terran in the mid late game, why do Terrans act so aggressive? It's because some of the bases are really wide open. Now for Zerg, it's not as big of a deal. Lambo taking this forward base is going to help him spread creep better. This one is obviously going to be a little bit more open. You don't have the mineral wall blocking to protect it, like on the other side of the map. But that's exactly it, right? Is there's less angles for you to come at. So if you want to put a mine or two or build a couple buildings, wall off where that 4th is on the hallway, or around your 3rd base, it's not going to be as difficult as on the other maps, and that means that it's easier to move out without leaving your army behind, so your pushes can have more units in them, which is something that I hope HeRoMaRinE will do his best to take advantage of. But he's played, once again, Cats, pretty greedy here. Crazy fast 3rd command center, 1 gas on each base, so he's really not sweating it at all. He's like, I'm just going to go big macro just like in game number 1 again.
Yes, indeed. And Lambo taking the same 3rd that Laser went for. Now, the two of them obviously talk a lot to each other, so they must have decided that this is the 3rd base to take for one reason or another. And where I saw this base as a sign of aggression from Laser, I think on the side of Lambo, it's most likely going to be just a macro transition and use it as a staging point to spread creep very fast out onto the map.
Yeah, and we actually had a really good conversation about this in yesterday's show about this exact thing, or was it earlier today on this map? We talked about Zergs being able to spread that creep more effectively from that middle position, which is very important, because if this game ends up being like the first one, since Gabe is doing the same build that he did in map number 1, I can only assume that Lambo, given space to breathe, would probably want to go for those lurkers again, right? Am I crazy in thinking that that strategy worked very well for him?
I think it really did. I think it's a good go-to strategy. And on a map like this, I think that Lambo should feel pretty comfortable on defense, more so perhaps than on any other map, in so long as he's able to break those rocks early enough. If you break those rocks and get rid of those mineral pathings, I think it's very, very difficult to attack onto a circ that has spread. Look at the creep spread, right? And this is, I think, exactly what he's going for. I think he's saying this forward third is harder perhaps to secure, but early enough that you can secure it and spread creep from it, and then the fourth is going to be extremely easy, just tucked away inside. So pretty cool stuff here from Lambo.
Yeah, I also think it's worth pointing out that at least against Terran, maybe taking that third base position is also nice because, the Terran could try to set up a siege from the other side of the minerals, right? Like, it'd be a bit of a distance, but if you left tanks on the other side and then just brought the Marines, you could always fall back. It's a little bit harder to kill the tanks, maybe. Just theory crafting a little bit here.
No, definitely. We saw the Sol going for a timing attack against Serral, where he actually broke those rocks and went into that position that you're talking about with the mineral line blocking the tanks. The problem is that Serral had already mined those minerals, right? And that's what I'm getting at. And this is what I love to see from Lambo, is just opening up the map, mining. He needs to mine these minerals eventually. He is already breaking the rocks in the middle of the map. This is checking all the boxes that I like to see checked here.
Yeah, and it's a smart play, right? Well, as you said it, you just said it, right? If Serral's doing it, then I'm not going to say that anything that guy does is wrong. If I'm being honest, has he lost a map yet in this group stage? Still, I don't think so, right? Still hasn't lost a single map. He's looking pretty good. He's looking pretty good. We cast him yesterday. He hadn't lost a map yesterday, so I'm going to assume that is still the situation today.
Yeah, he's looking incredible and more varied than ever before. All these medevacs are gonna pick up and go into the main most likely, but not making a straight line to it. So gonna give Lambo a little bit of time to reposition his army here, and there will be links to greet it, but not enough. And Big Gabe is gonna take a little bit of a fight there tucked in, but the units are a little bit low and don't manage to heal in time, so they get taken down, at least 6 of them, and he's gonna retreat for now.
Yeah. Now, here's what's interesting to me. Like, he had a really good dive on top of that. He was so ready for it. Lambo's done a really good job this game of having a lot of units underneath and to go for those big surrounds. And I absolutely love to see it, because I think that's got to be like the key to this whole strategy, because he isn't going to try to go for any big power units until he can get his lurkers. And I don't really describe Hydras as the big power units either. They are very much so a support unit with the way that Lambo's been using them, until the lurkers come out, and then they become like, okay, yeah, they're still kind of supporting the lurkers, but if you can't dive on the Hydras, they do actually put out a really high DPS. You just, you need those either lurkers or roaches to buffer for them, and well, roaches late game suck, so don't want to be using those.
Indeed, Hydras are a really cool backbone defensively, because they're the units that stay alive, whereas the Ling Bane is mostly gonna just trade at the front. The Hydras can kind of shoot, and they can deal with the medevacs, and they're kind of like the cleanup crew, but on offense, they're kind of clunky. They're really slow off of creep, and so it's difficult to make them work. Plus siege tanks already pre-sieged are going to be difficult to move into with Hydra. So I'm completely with you. They are kind of a backbone defensive unit for the most part. And Lambo has done a wonderful job of defending, and throughout the series, creep spread has been one of his better friends.
Yeah. Here I'll do my next thing here, right? If we're talking about horror movies, these Marines trying to clean up these lings, but that creep spread taking over the map, the hive transforming, Lambo getting his way back to those lurkers again, cats. It's like if you've ever seen, I don't know if you've seen the movie or played it, but like in Silent Hill, when the church bells start going off, and all of a sudden all the metal starts to rust and the walls turn a sickly red color, and if you're a Terran player, that means the lurkers are coming, and there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, it would be very scary.
Somewhere to hide.
Now, if we're talking Halloween for real, though, Nate, what I would love to see if Lambo ends up winning this series is a dance on those Hydras, because they actually do the thriller dance.
Oh,
that'd be cool. Oh, some of these banelings are gonna collapse, but Big Gabe with good awareness. He's done a good job of staying out on the map. But this game, if I may say it, I think it's looking better for Lambo than even game number 1 looked. Though his timings are not as sharp, his map presence, his map control is much greater, and Big Gabe's is not as good. Though he does have a huge tank push moving out.
Yes, he does, and this is like one of the last big opportunities that Gabe is going to have to attack without having to deal with lurkers.
Ooh.
Because while the lurker den is ready and he could make some, Lambo does not have the upgrades for them yet, right? The hive is done, but he's investing into Vipers first because he recognizes that he doesn't have time to get seismic spines and adaptive talons. And if you don't have those upgrades, the lurkers are going to be way less successful against those siege tanks. So it's very, very important that Lambo can buy himself this time, get a couple of abducts off, at the very least stall this out. The lurker upgrades are beginning, but he needs to make it to that point. If this Marine tank force can just get on top of him, that's going to be very hard to dislodge. But okay, I was not sure if he was about to go down that ramp. That was a scary moment.
Yeah, I wonder if you give up this base, if you are Lambo, or if you're comfortable with taking the engagement even before the Vipers show up. There is a very good spread of tanks off creep if you are Big Gabe, so I like his position. There is those spines coming up for Lambo. I love the Viper transition or decision in light of all these tanks, but is it gonna come into play? Here comes the attack of Lambo, and good blinding clouds onto 2 tanks, 3 tanks. That last one actually catching all 3 right in the middle, and he's gonna get a fantastic cleanup, Nate.
You can't really ask for much more than that, can you, Paolo? Not only does he clean up all of the important units that HeRoMaRinE has, he does it with still maintaining a massive supply lead. Now 12 lurkers start, and this is the part where the walls start to bleed. We get into the fog has set in, cats, and I think the monsters are about to come out to play with their subterranean spikes, tentacles, whatever it is the lurkers are using to kill everything. I assume we'll be seeing more of that shortly, if unless HeRoMaRinE makes some sort of insane play. But there is just so much firepower here for the Zerg now. It's going to be difficult.
Yes, indeed. HeRoMaRinE trying to do what he can on the other side of the map, and I love the positioning of his army, recognizing that this is the more likely place for Lambo to attack. Even though, personally, I think that the wide open 4th base of HeRoMaRinE is a little bit more susceptible. I think that what Lambo is doing is really cool because it attacks and defends at the same time, right? He doesn't want to expose his most outer base as well.
Yeah, and this is the tricky thing where the Terran tries to spread the Zerg player thin a little bit, right? We have that drop in the main base. That's going to try and see if he can get some lasting damage. And now killing the Hydralisk Den is definitely nice. You can still build the lurkers. Those things aren't the same anymore, but he's going to have to rebuild the den if he wants to replace the anti-air, those fast shooting Hydralisks. +3 Carapace is about to finish. He's kind of diving on some of these lurkers over here. Lambo,
but the lurkers
commanding a little bit much there, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit dangerous of an engagement, as Big Gabe is really multitasking everywhere, trying to pull the attention of Lambo, and he's doing a fantastic job of it. I mean, these Lynx have their work cut out for them as this medevac continues to juke back and forth.
Yeah, this is the kind of pressure plays that you want to try to make, but Gabe unable to keep up in the speed, right? Those medevacs, they lost all of the units inside of the main base, so the drop's been cleaned up, and now, if you're HeRoMaRinE, where exactly are you going to try to go from this position? Has he been able to thin out the lurker count much? There's still 8. There's still 8 lurkers, and he hasn't been able to build Hydralisks for a hot minute. So that's that really speaks volumes as to how this game's been going. Big surround, blinding cloud on the northeast side of the siege tank. Thrissom all sieging up, gets another blinding cloud on the left side, and on the southeast, the Viper lurker, Ling Bane Wombo combo is going to strut its stuff all the way up to that 5th base of HeRoMaRinE. Now, this is quite a defensive bulwark that he can try to fall back on, but the planetary dropping below half hit points, Cats.
Yeah, but that's a little bit of an overextension, running those banelings into the planetary fortress a little bit carelessly because it wasn't very many banelings. And Lambo will actually get pushed back here as HeRoMaRinE pushes on forth with Marauders. They're going to be a little bit better at tanking and taking the lurkers down than Marines would be. So Big Gabe really with a decent defense there, in spite of a very good engagement initially from Lambo.
Yeah, I think Lambo definitely getting a little bit carried away there. I recognize that he wants to use the fast burrow to get close so he can hit a lot of things at once, but my God, Is that 17? 18 lurkers he's baking.
Yeah. He is getting nasty.
Now it's a horror movie for me too, cats.
I would really love extra Vipers being added. I think they have done great work for Lambo so far, but he's gonna brute force it instead. Well, I elegantly brute force it as he burrows some lurkers at a time, and he's gonna push on forth onto this planetary fortress base. However, he's out on the open. Does he just have too much donate? I'm not sure. I think so.
This is the most gutsy, like, just nonchalant. Yeah, I don't care if I'm just going to move, command my lurkers. If I lose a couple of them, that's fine. I only need about 70% of them to burrow to kill everything anyway, and he does. Big cleanup here. Not a lot of Hydras left over for the command center to worry about. A little bit of Liberator counter harass. Oh, actually, a lot of Liberator counter harass, but might have needed to see that a little bit earlier in this game because, cats, he's about to reach the Terran production, and we know what that means. There won't be a whole lot you can do if your units die as they spawn.
Yes, indeed. This 4 Hydras doing so much as well. If these 4 Hydras weren't here, the 1 Liberator would have been enough defensively. Now they're being taken down, but there are no Liberators out on the map. The tanks are going to have to siege out of these lurkers, and they do a good job of cleaning up. But Lambo has done a beautiful job taking down a base and not really losing any economy in the process. Or, you know, some workers, but not real estate, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Cass. You're spot on. This has just been a wild game. This is exactly what I was hoping to see. And there's a couple of interesting things that almost happened that never really came to fruition, like the Ghost Academy. One of the ways that, you know, Terran can try to deal with the lurkers is using those snipes, but because they have the same range, you need to have everything else in place first. And Lambo has just had such a dominating performance in this map. Like, lost a lot in the end, but that's the way the Zerg. That's how Zerg works, man. Like, you're supposed to throw stuff at them until they die and flood them with units, and he's done that very, very well. Still scratching my head a little bit at how bold he is with the lurker movement, but I suppose he doesn't mind if his burger's a little bit greasy. It can still taste delicious.
Yeah, I quite like it actually because while he has been moving and posturing very aggressively, he's never burrowing and unburrowing all at the same time unless it's very small numbers of lurkers.